Now to start the week, we get this big break and we this big push on Nasdaq. ES, and we're testing all the major key levels on ES specifically. You see, we're coming into this 4,200 range. We're going to talk about why this is so big, why this rejection so far, what it means for the market, and what it means moving forward into tomorrow. Now, also Nasdaq, one of the few days that we've kind of maintained above 13.3, ending the day probably a little bit, right above 13.3 still. We'll see here in a few minutes. But where do we go from here? Now, we have some big news on Wednesday, probably the overall biggest news across the week. But then we have earnings as well on Apple, AMD, and some other big names. On top of that, we have to talk about what's happening with these failing banks. We talked about what would happen, and I let you know on Twitter as well. So let's jump into all of this. Now, before I start jumping in and going over the DD and everything in between, I have to ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing. Every single day I make videos for you, so you are prepared. Fundamentals and technicals. Now, right now, they're a little bit disconnected, but what I will say is we always are looking for value here in the market. Right, wrong, doesn't matter. I'm going to show you what I'm doing, how I'm trading. Once again, I'm going to show you what we traded on the day. Now, I started a little bit of a swing position, but I didn't get too crazy. So I started getting some AMD strikes for August. That's my position, just to let you know. So maybe you just got all you wanted in today's video, but those are currently up. But again, I'm not really looking. I have earnings coming up. I never play earnings, but I like AMD a lot. Jay, the silent killer. This guy went on a tear. Now, if you were in the newsletter, we're going to go over that here in a second, you saw this play as well. But Jay, he saw NVIDIA out of the gate. What did he say? You broke above the key level. You started getting in. They went straight to 285, his first target. And then it went to your next target, which was mentioned in the newsletter. Okay, so as we look at this, going into the newsletter, this is every Sunday we give you this. This is absolutely free. You don't have to pay for any of this. NVIDIA, one of our favorite stocks in the week. What's going to happen here? The trading range 263, 280. It's crucial to stay patient and wait for confirmation based before taking action. If buyers succeed in breaking and holding above 280, this could pave the way for further gains into potential targets 285.95 to 89.46. Where is NVIDIA right now at the end of the day? Where is it getting rejected at? Almost right now, perfectly. Right at that level, 289, the high 289s roughly. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful money play there. So the scalp today, that's what it is. I started a longer dated position in AMD as well. They have earnings. I do think semiconductors are due to run. I'm going to tell you that right now. Now, if you're serious about wanting to get better at trading, if you're serious about wanting to be around like-minded traders like yourself, the Discord may be for you. It's not a signal service. Yes, we go over our trades, what we're looking at, but the goal is to teach you how to get from point A to B, and hopefully to the point where you don't need to be in a Discord, right? You should never be joining a Discord to get signals. You should be joining somewhere to get better. That's the goal of this channel, to get you 1% better every single day. If you're not ready to take that next step, guys, I'm telling you right now, all the content is here for free as well. Twitter, Instagram, we have the live streams here every single day, 10:30 a.m. Central. So get in there, ask your questions. But if you want a little bit more hand-holding, you want to be with us all day long, ask those questions, Discord may be for you. There's spots available right now. Take advantage while you can. So let's get back into what's happening here. Now, the biggest news on this week, biggest news that's going to be happening this week is we have FOMC. Okay, that's going to be the biggest thing this week to let you know going into Wednesday. Now, specifically with this, what's important to understand, what's important to really know about this as we go into Wednesday around, I think, 1 p.m., 2 p.m. Central, okay, right? What's the biggest thing to know here? Not only are we making our interest rate decision, but we're also going to be talking heavily about what's happening with these banks. And when we look at what's happening with the banks, it's already really solved. The bank has been bought by JP Morgan. If you watch the video on the second channel, then you really got the whole breakdown a whole day in advance. We knew that one of the banks that had already dumped money into them was going to make the purchase, and we knew that they weren't just going to go under like SIVB or these other banks. But on top of that, what did we tell you on Twitter? We have all these other people on Twitter spreading fake news. A month ago, we have a group of 11 banks that dumped this money that's uninsured, yada, yada, yada. The money that was dumped into these banks was not uninsured. That is stupidity and a lie because you did not read the fine print. We've been talking about all this here on the channel. This is on Twitter if you want to read it as well. Holding companies, basically this is so you know what's happened. The FDIC and the Fed made a deal. The Fed raised their balance sheet 300 billion, and they dumped all this money into banks. They put 150 basically into the already failed banks, Signature and Silicon Valley. Those two. That was 150. They took those out. Those banks are no more. Then the rest of that money they gave to other big banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, etc., Citigroup, right? And basically what they did is they gave this money to them so they could lend this out to smaller banks. Now, why did they do this? Okay, why did they do this? And how was this insured? The FDIC has guaranteed the repayment of all the loans to these banks from the Fed. So the FDIC insured the Fed. And what the Fed did is they loaned this out to these big banks for almost no interest whatsoever. And then the banks loaned this out to smaller banks, correct, for a little bit of interest, right? So chances are, even with this buyout, that the money that they put into FRC, they're just going to get it back. They're going to get all those returns back either way. This was all set up. And so when JP Morgan comes out here and they make this purchase, they're not buying it with money in their pockets. They're buying it with the money the Fed gave to them at an extremely low rate. 3D chess, pretty wild to see what is happening. But again, we talked about all this on Twitter, okay? What did I say? The Fed still has plenty of ammo betting banks buyout FRC, and this turns into a bull narrative soon. I'm betting banks turn into a bull narrative very soon. We literally talked about this 24 hours ago. So before you start going into all this happening with banks going under, understand what's happening here, right? And then we also get to this next statement of we're one step closer to getting out of the woodwork to the bank crisis. So let's get to the juicy part. What's happening here? Okay. Now, first of all, in the newsletter as well, we went over, the earnings down here. You can see all the earnings for the week. Now, really quick for the earnings for the week, the big ones that I'm interested in particular. Okay. You have AMD tomorrow in the after hours. Very big. You need to be watching that one. QCOM Wednesday, pretty big, but not the one I'm most excited for. Most excited for what's happening with Apple. Okay. Apple and also going into AMD. Those are my two big boys you need to be watching this week. Those are the ones I think can set the tone and really get us moving very, very quickly. So those are the ones you need to be prepared for, okay? We need to be watching those in particular. Those are the ones. Those are the dogs here on the week. Again, Apple. If Apple beats and AMD beats, it's been a clean sweep for tech. They're smashing across the board, okay? Now, jumping back into what's happening here, let's go to a higher time frame to get a better visual here of the Nasdaq and what's happening with ES. Now, with the Nasdaq, what have we talked about here? Okay, basically going back, right? Going back since October, continue to make higher lows, higher highs. You continue to go. Where are we bearish? What has to happen in order to get bearish based on technicals? You have to hold below 12.95, at least 12.95, 12.90, the end. Okay, you can't do that. You've had a few breakouts, you almost held there, but then you push back above. Okay, that's what we know. On top of this, when we go into looking at what's happening with the overall volume, this is where things get a little bit more tricky as well. What is happening here? I made a post in Discord as well about this. As you come to the end of this breakout, you're sitting in this sideways consolidation. You break down, volume kind of gets a little bit of a pump, but not too much. And then volume starts spiking on Nasdaq in particular as buyers show up to push you back into highs and maybe even get that breakout, right? So for everyone in the comments talking about volume, as far as Nasdaq, you are getting some rising volume here. Now ES, it's not as crazy, it's not as great, but the volume still is pretty sideways. And I would side that so far, volume has been more in favor of buyers than it has been on sellers as of recent. Okay. Don't shoot the messenger, right? But what are we seeing on S&P 500 today? Okay. What did I let you know? If you're following on Twitter, again, I love going over Twitter because you can go back and check and make sure I'm not lying to you. So what do we post on Twitter? I posted this morning, 9 a.m. We expect a push and test of 4,200. What happened? Within literally 1 hour, the test and rejection of 4,200. If you mount above 4,200, bulls will start to take control. We will start to see shorts covering very rapidly, in my opinion. Now, targets after this level, if this level breaks, what to expect? I think you're expecting close to 43.30. I do believe you're going to be pushing up in a hurry. Okay, we need to understand where this level is and what's going to really happen when we start to break out of it. Okay, so you would start pushing most likely up to 43.30, 43 flat minimum. Okay. Into Nasdaq, which again, we look here, 13.7 roughly, right? That's where we have our next target. If we start breaking above 13.4 and 13.7. Okay. So you are set up for continuation. Now, there's a very big basis on what has to happen in order to get that continuation or to be confident in said continuation. Okay. 1, you do have AMD and Apple earnings this week. 2, the Fed is going to talk about raising rates. They probably are going to raise rates 0.25 this meeting coming up in May. I do believe we are going to start shifting the narrative, okay, into a pause. I do believe we start getting closer and closer towards the pause. And for everyone out there saying inflation isn't going nowhere, inflation isn't moving, it's not doing this, it's not doing that. I agree. I am on your side. I agree. Inflation is still an issue. However, when you look at it from a perspective, what has really happened and what's the driving factors of all this inflation right now? Okay. Bear with me. What's the driving factors right now? Well, you need to understand this before you even try to understand anything else. Unemployment and wage growth are still too high. What has happened since we started raising rates from last year? If we look at the past year of raising rates since last January, what has happened? Unemployment continues to drop. Wage growth is still rising. So will doing another 2.25 all summer long guarantee unemployment to go down or to go up? I'm sorry. It will not. There is no guarantee. The Fed continues to say this is what we have to listen to what the Fed says, because the Fed really paints a picture of what's going to happen at the next meeting every single time. Okay. And when we look at what they're doing, they need to get to a point, like they've said, to where they can pause and let the rates do their job. They need to stick to their guns, let the rates sit at 5.5%, whatever they're at, let them sit there and let the market marinate. Because eventually what's going to happen, I promise you, unemployment will rise as when they leave them here. But if you just keep raising rates over and over and over, you might affect bonds in a negative way. You might affect yields too much. You might affect the dollar too much. Okay. And those have already been pushed to the point of where they need to be pushed to. Okay. So before you start screaming, we got to raise rates, you don't necessarily have to. Because what we've seen so far is that even though we continue raising rates, inflation data has not been tracking back related to these interest rate data as well. Again, if you have questions, comment down below. I would love to answer that. And I would love to hear what you think about that. If you think that's a bad notion, I would love to have a little bit of a chit chat. So we'll see there. Now, again, I'm going to talk about a few stocks I'm liking, a few setups I'm liking. Then I'm going to let you out of here very, very quickly. Okay. So I don't want to keep you too long today. Now, number one, obviously it's my boy. I love it. It's my favorite one right now, AMD. And if you love to get more information on this, again, Twitter is the best source right now. I'm going to try to do more overall threads like this because I think it's just the best way for me to make some of this content and for everyone to ask questions. I can just send you a link. So I basically made a thread here, AMD to $100, a quick thread. I'm not saying it has to go there, but I'm giving you the possibility of what's going to happen, what could drive you there. So if we look over the past few weeks, going back into October, you push up, you trend, you break, trend, break, trend. You've kind of broken here, heading into earnings. Now, the big thing here, as we zoom out to the daily, we can zoom out a little bit further. We'll actually go to the weekly really quick for you. Okay. You're somewhat making a cup and handle. I don't even love to call it that, but some people I know you're going to ask and call it that, but we'll just sideline that for now. But what I like here is you've bounced at this massive demand back in October, which you called in Discord. We talked about that. Your major key level, 99.55, you came up, rejected, pushed down. I like that as well. With decent earnings, follow through from the Fed, and a good Apple earnings. I know it's a lot to ask for. I get it. I'm telling you now, there's a high possibility we could start mounting and pushing above as well. Okay. So if you want to be safe, you wait for earnings, you see what happens, and then you play it after. That's a safe name to do. But what did we see today? So I love AMD. I could go on all day about this. What did we see today, though? Like I mentioned, in the beginning of the video, NVIDIA, the 4-hour chart, everyone said this is going to break down. This is going to break down. Everyone's short NVIDIA, short it. Well, what's happening now? Consolidate sideways, like we talked about. The same thing over and over. The same trend. Nothing's changed. trend sideways, break above, trend sideways, break above, and you're pushing towards 300 now. There's a real possibility that NVIDIA pushes to all-time highs. Now, what's the catalyst behind NVIDIA? It's every company and your mother talking about AI. What did we hear from the last Meta earnings? Not this, the one that just passed, the one before this. Meta came out and they said it costs almost $10 billion to run all of their servers. This has nothing to do with AI, but this just shows you the scale. Okay. To run these servers, you're using NVIDIA's tech. You're using all this semiconductor tech, right? Even though they're paying this to AWS, AWS gets it from NVIDIA, gets it from all these different companies. So you have to understand, even though we're in this area of a recession, NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, TSM, right? These companies are in an emerging market right now. They're in a market with extreme high demand. Investors look at these companies and they say, look, and recession ends today, this company has exponential growth. That's why NVIDIA continues to do this. And that's why when we were down here, we broke above 200 and mounted right here. I said, I'm done. I'm not shorting NVIDIA. You have to make a lower low, but you can't do it. Okay. You're shorting something based on a PE ratio, but you're not shorting something based on actually what they're doing, based on actual growth metrics. And that's what's happening with NVIDIA. So before you jump to conclusions and start shorting things, just understand all those people in the comments that were saying, Tyler, you shouldn't be going long on NVIDIA. You shouldn't be thinking NVIDIA is going to go higher. It's such a good company. It's this, or it's such a bad company and their PE ratio. All those people got silent, right? That's why on this channel, if I have a bad day, if I have a bad call out, I still come back. I show you the loss. I move on. All these other guys, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be, it's all about winning and Lambos and this and that. Guys, there's blood, there's good days. There's bad days, there's great days. You have to understand that. I'm never going to lead you astray and tell you it's all rainbows and unicorns. And every day I wake up and I just thank God that I'm just a millionaire winning every single day on trading, right? But you have to be able to disconnect your emotions. That's the one thing that I think that I can do in this market. I don't care if I'm wrong, okay? And honestly, if I'm right, y'all don't care that much either. You know what? If you're not making money, you don't care. And it's the same thing for me. If I'm not making this money in this market, I don't care. That's my goal in this market every single day. That's what me and you have in common. Understand that. That's the goal. Trades are on the line, money's on the line. I put my money where my mouth is. So understand that as well. Now, a little bit deeper, because I know you're going to ask. Tesla, if you're below 164, I'm not a huge fan, but a few things on Tesla that are interesting as we look throughout the day. You still are making higher lows. Okay, you have to understand that. If you get above 164, you have room to 166. Above 166, I believe you're very, very bullish. Going to let you know that right now, but until then, you got to be a little bit careful in this range. Be careful. That's all I'm going to say. Amazon, hate it. Not a big fan. You're below the 102.5 level. That's a very major level. I wouldn't be looking to go long on this. Not a huge fan. Going to tell you right now. Zooming out, what is this 102.5 level? You have to go all the way out to the weekly. That's how scary this level is. It was your previous high from 2018 and 19, just to let you know. That is a very big level, and you're back below it. Very influential level as well. Honorable mention right now is Google. Google, people keep asking me, Tyler, where's the value in the market right now? If I had to say value in the market, there are probably two big stocks right now. It would have to be Amazon. It would have to be Google. If I picked one of them, Google would be my guy. Google's sitting at $107. If you can start to break back over this inflection point, right? You can see right there, this 107, 108. You break back above that, you have room back into 122, 121. So from a stock standpoint, I think Google's one of the best buys. Even with all the AI craze, I'm going to tell you right now, people are sleeping on Google. They had a bad startup with this AI stuff though, but they're going to figure it out. They're going to bounce back, and they're making so much money right now. And on top of that, the big stock buyback from them. You got to love it. You can't sleep on it. Okay. So I love Google. They're doing very well, but again, a little bit slower than some of the AI names, but again, great buy long-term for myself. Stock looks absolutely glorious, absolutely beautiful at these levels. Also, to just know that what I'd be watching, absolutely love it.